Hi, and welcome to our next episode of Authenticity. My name is Megan Meisler, and I'm the Executive Director at Lutheran Counseling Services in Orlando, Florida. And we're using this platform to have authentic conversations about mental health. We fully believe that if we are going to change the mental health crisis, especially coming out of COVID, we have got to learn how to be authentic people and practice active listening skills. So we're using this platform to share people's lives and what it has been like and talk about our real journey. So I am joined by a really good friend of mine that I haven't seen face to face in, I don't know,
last summer,
a couple of years. Last summer? Is that when we
saw?
Oh, yeah, that's
youth
right.
Gathering.
Last summer. Yes, youth gatherings always bring us back together. So my friend, Melissa Burkle, will you introduce yourself? Tell us what you do and how we know each other.
Okay. I am currently principal at Word of Life Lutheran School in St. Louis. Just finished my second year in that role. Prior to that, I was teaching there in the middle school, whether it was science or math over the course of my time. Started there in the 14-15 school year when we moved out here from Orlando when my husband had a job offer out here. So prior to that, I was at Trinity downtown Orlando, served there as principal for, I think, 6 years.
Really?
And that was my first admitted position. I was there teaching for a little bit before that. That's, I guess, probably where we got closer because I think as I started as principal, that was when you started as youth director and you were starting your counseling, I think your hours at that point. So like getting all your hours in. So technically though, I think we officially met, we just didn't know each other very well at my very first call, which is at St. Luke's in Oviedo. Because I think you worked summer or aftercare.
I did. Wow, that was a really long time ago.
Yeah. So I don't know if you were there when I started, but because that was 2001 when I had my first call to St. Luke's in Oviedo, and I taught middle school math there.
Yeah, I was there in 2002, I think I came there.
Okay.
So yeah. So we've known each other. Man, when I was talking to Jessica and I wasn't using years. So now we're getting real over here, authentic. Yeah. So we've known each other quite a long time.
Yeah.
Dude, that's almost 20 years.
That's
ridiculous.
That's coming up. Oh my goodness. It's just crazy to think about. I don't feel that old.
We served together at Trinity downtown when we definitely got closer, and my kids were at your school and you were having baby. I filled in as interim principal for you while you were on maternity leave and learned that God did not give me the gift of being a principal.
Oh my gosh.
Knowing each other for a while, and then you escaped up north. So get to connect at National Youth Gatherings most of the time.
Yes. Yeah.
So how have you been? How has life changed? Like, what did things look like during COVID, being a principal and having to make a lot of decisions? Like, just take me through the process of the last couple of months.
It's been crazy. And then it's still the roller coaster. I feel like some people maybe have gotten to take a little bit of a break. They talk about how so much of our anxiety with this is the unknown with it. And, while in some ways, I guess I just feel like as an administrator, the unknown is still straight in front of me because we just don't know what school's going to look like in the fall. I mean, we're planning for various scenarios, but until we get close enough to really know where we're at with everything, it's still just a big unknown. So that's really just kind of how it started in March. I mean, I think just as spring break was getting started here was when stay-at-home orders in this area kicked in. We were fortunate enough to be one of the schools that got to get our spring musical in right before all that hit.
Wow.
Because that was our last week of third quarter. So we got all that in, and then that weekend is when it really all hit. And so next week, I mean, I had teachers and out of town on spring break vacations and all that, but those that were in, we just kind of pulled together and really started to talk through a little bit of what it was going to look like as we came back from spring break. So we did, we just did a lot of different things at different grade levels, because like many other schools, we just, you didn't have time to really plan. You just kind of dove feet first in, trying to think of everything that she possibly could have for the kids and continuing their learning. And so it looked different at each grade level. And we used technology where we could with the upper grades, started integrating it more with the middle grades, and the lower grades, we kind of stuck with kind of their traditional format of books and paper, pencil, and that kind of thing. So, as it all started, it was, well, maybe we'll be back in a couple weeks. And then it just kept getting longer and longer and longer. And then it was through the end of the school year. And then that just did a tailspin. And the next round of things to think about was everything that happens at the normal end of a year. And how do we give closure, especially to the groups of our kids that needed it before they left. So we did.
Yeah, what did you do for closure?
We ended up doing a parade at school for the 8th graders. We spread them out and invited our association and school families to come drive by and honk their horns. We had a pretty good turnout for that. I think they really enjoyed it. And then we pretty much created their graduation on video. We didn't do anything live, just because part of one of our traditions was a end of year slideshow, and so music, you'll get pulled from YouTube if you post some of that stuff. So we just did it all on DVD for them and sent that out. We did, I think a lot of communication brought us all together, like across the U.S. through LuthEd on Facebook and things like that, and reaching out to different people. Actually, my sister said that her school connected with somebody famous to do a little video message. So we did that too. We got someone from the Cincinnati Bengals, who was a graduate of one of the Lutheran high schools in the area, to put a little video, and we plopped that into the middle of their graduation video as a surprise. So kindergarten, we just did a graduation video, just simple, nothing crazy. But yeah.
Will you tell a little bit about, we haven't talked about this on here, but LuthEd, like Lutheran education, does Matt run it? It's a whole like Facebook group. So your husband Matt runs it, but tell us a little bit about LuthEd and how that's like a great resource.
Okay, there's actually two components of it. There is actually the LuthEd website, which he keeps updated and posts resources there from the LCMS School Ministry Office. But then he started as well a LuthEd Facebook group, and it's a closed group.
It's huge, yeah.
It is. It's grown so much, and it's Lutheran school teachers coming together and asking for resources, or what to do here and what to do then, and what are we planning for now, and it's really just a great spot to connect with other people and get ideas from each other.
Yeah, I've seen so many like COVID ideas shared on there, and like ways that people are doing things differently, and like people asking like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Have you guys done this before? There's a youth ministry page like that too, but the LuthEd one is huge, and I think such a great resource that you can just brainstorm ideas with people across the nation doing like in the same decision fatigue that you are in the same tailspin that goes on. How has the summer look different? Because as a principal, like there would be a lot of things over the summer that you would need to like hunker down and get done. So what does it look like for you this summer?
So things that I had been planning to work on this summer, that just aren't as urgent, are going to wait until we're back in school, and hopefully as we get into routine there, that I can start tackling some of those things. It wasn't anything major. It was just more things that we could be updating as far as procedures and documents that are kind of behind the scenes at the school. We were blessed that, part of our summer is if we are filling staff positions still, but we're not worrying about that now, because we actually called Jessica Thompson before.
I know, I heard that last week. That's so awesome.
So that was right before everything hit too. And so we were blessed to have that work out. So we're excited to have her on the team. And then there's like lots of little things like, our school portal where all of our grades and things are stored, and tuition fees, all that stuff. Closing out that year, starting the next one, trying to get re-enrollment wrapped up, because this threw a huge wrench into re-enrollment, because, you try to wrap it up by a certain time, and, everybody's trying to balance everything at home, and that's like,
and wait to see what our plans are. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is, and then your normal summer, planning for what you're sending out for the normal school year, which, you start drafting that, but you can't finish it until you know what your plans are going to be, because that document's going to look completely different. So there's the usual stuff, and the usual emails that come in, and things like that. What makes it harder though then is, you've got this other thing that's just kind of looming. You get there like so many emails from different organizations and groups. Look at this, here's this resource, and so you're trying to weed your way through all that, focus more on your state as it is, and then creating the different scenarios for what school could look like.
Like a decision tree, is that what it looks like for you? Like, if this, then we'll do this, or if this?
Yeah, a little bit.
Brainstorming.
It is mine. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. Like, basically, we're gonna, if we have a stay-at-home order, or if cases are high enough that they're in the area that they're suggesting schools don't happen in person, then we'll do it. If not, I'm kind of planning my in-school scenario as a kind of a more like that cases are more moderate, I guess. And so we can always take things out, because I think it's easier to take things out of a plan than to try to put them back in. And so, I don't even think we need the plan for if things are that great, because, then we'll just update along the way. If things are getting better, then we say, you know what, we don't need to do this anymore. Yay. So it's just, I don't want parents to have to read through large amounts of documents. Right. So trying to keep it as simple as possible. Yeah. So a lot more planning will go on the teacher side of things, and we'll work through more details there and that kind of thing. But so that's taken up a good chunk of the summer. Like, I feel at times like, okay, I got this. I can start writing and get some things down. And then it's like, you sit through another hour-long Zoom meeting with administrators, or you listen to a district webinar, and you're just like, ugh.
We'll scratch that out, and we won't do that.
Yeah. So it's like that roller coaster idea is really what it's like. Feeling at times like we've got it done, and then other times not so much. So I think part of what's made it interesting too is just balancing with home life, because we, my office staff, we're just taking still extra precautions, and we're only each of us is in one morning a week to have the office open for anything that might need to happen. But otherwise, we're all still working from home. My husband's still working from home. So trying to manipulate your day.
What are you doing with the boys? Yeah, what are you doing with the boys while you both are working from home?
This is the fun part. So this is what our day looks like. Once we get breakfast done, and the goal is by 7:30, that 7:30 to 9, I'm sitting down and doing some work. And then 9 to 3 is kind of Matt's designated hours from his office. So he's on then. And then at 3 o'clock, I jump back on until about 5, and then start doing dinner. And then typically, realistically, as soon as the boys are down, you're back on. Yeah. And I'd say that happens probably the first half of the week. And then by the end of the week, the evenings are just kind of relaxation again to take a break. But, it's funny. I mean, one other huge blessing at Word of Life is that my hours are part-time during the summer, which is nice having kids. And so I go down to about 20 hours a week. So I don't have as many defined, but when you split it up like that, it's less cohesive. And so you feel like you have to pick which projects you
Yeah.
can start. Yeah. You know, and then phone calls happen during normal business hours for other people. Texting, checking email on my phone as I'm with them. I mean, because that's what it is. Our kids are 1.5 and 7. So it's basically they have to be supervised unless we've got, we did buy very shortly after all this started, a gate, like a fence play yard area.
Video. Good.
Yeah. And we've got some toys in there, and that if we really need to get something done and walk away, or at least be sitting on the couch to do something, that he's in the play area, and then our oldest one gets kind of sent off to.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think it was easier in the spring when it was nice, like beautiful weather, and we could be outside more. I think as the summer heat's hitting, you know, now we've got to balance a little bit more of getting out in the morning before it gets too hot, and then at the end of the day when it's not too hot, and figure out activities inside in between.
Well, and finding like unique things that you haven't done. You were telling me that Matt just took the boys on this like cool adventure.
Yeah, there's a park in the area that I think it's called Lone Elk Park, if I remember correctly. But it's a drive-through park. You don't really get out of your car, just follow the roads and you look for wildlife. They have a lot of elk. They also have an area where there's, I think, bison. We just went a couple weeks ago too, and saw a little family of raccoons. It was a mom and like 3 little babies that were following behind her. So Christopher was excited to be going again to see that. So he got them all in and got their snacks packed, because it takes a little while to get down there and then drive through it all and that kind of thing.
That's awesome. Like there's so many more things that we can go and explore in the world right now. What have been some, like, I know there's tons of stresses, but what have been some cool blessings that have come out of this time, or like unique moments that you didn't expect?
You know, the one thing that stood out at the beginning, and as much as we are so approaching terrible twos, one positive is the time that we have with our youngest. When Christopher was born and we were at Trinity, the early child care center was right on campus, and so I could pop in and see him and see some of his developments. And then even when we moved out here and I had that summer and I went back to teaching, I had summers with him. And so with this round, like, Tanner went straight into childcare, and it was going to be, you know, so being able to actually see the last several months of development in him, and spending that time with him, has been great. I think it's the same thing too with Christopher. You know, seeing, figuring out really kind of how he works and doesn't work, and going out for walks and bicycle rides with him. You know, as all this kind of went further, he's at first he'd be riding his bicycle ahead of us, and then it wasn't maybe a month into it, and all of a sudden, you know, he was right next to me, because then he would talk the whole time.
Oh, awesome.
So like, I mean, I feel like it was great that I had that chance to talk with him, but I think it also kind of, I guess the downside of it showed me how much he was missing having social interaction. Kind of really realized how much that he is more of an outgoing person. So positives also has just been slowing down, you know, like we're not running around everywhere. Weekends are more relaxing. I mean, we are doing housework, but we have plenty of time, even though we're still not doing it all necessarily. But there's more family time, you know, playing games, watching movies, listening to music, singing along and dancing, and reading books. I started the Chronicles of Narnia. I'm reading that to Christopher right now.
Really?
So
that's awesome.
We read The Magician's Nephew, and now we're almost done with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and he's just loving it. So just time for all that, you know, and it's been good.
Yeah, I've become a boss at like Uno, because McKenna, we play Uno over and over and over again. Uno and Battleship are the games over here at the Meeslers house. But when you talk about too, like, what are you noticing in Christopher, that you said about the missing the social interaction? Like, how have you seen that manifest in him? Because I'm seeing some of that in McKenna too.
Oh my gosh, it's progressively with phone calls, FaceTime with family. The conversations have gotten long. He was on the phone with my sister today for an hour on FaceTime. And granted, at some points he might have the phone like next to him and be doing something, but he is looking. We've had we haven't done it as much summer, but last month and a half of school was going on. One of his best friends, we set up FaceTime calls with once a week, so they could chat with each other. And then trying to balance the whole social distancing thing, but realizing he's a boy that needs to play. We do have neighbors, and that's probably where we've allowed a little bit of leeway for him. It's they're always, if they're playing, they're outdoors, but that's grown to be important to him. And if they're not home, it's so.
Well, and I've been having that discussion more and more with parents of, like, we want to respect social distancing and we want to be safe, but at what cost to our kids' mental health, mental and social development, at what cost? And, like, where's the fine line? And I don't know that any of us know the right or wrong answer, but I would wonder too, like, it is your role as a mom, as your role as a principal, what are your fears about going back to school and, like, seeing those deficits in kids from a social perspective, or mental health issues that you're fearful of coming back from summer?
Yeah, it is. It is the balance of that fine line. Realistically, certain ages of children, the mask wearing is just, it's not feasible. The other part of that is the social distancing isn't. And we start at 3-year-olds in our school. And so, I not only as I've been looking at the K-8 recommendations, I've been looking at the early child care center and daycare recommendations. So kind of taking, being realistic about, 3-year-olds through probably 6-7-year-olds, that it's not going to look like it can with middle school students. And so, there is, the positive is in the planning of them being in their classrooms, that they are going to at least have a core group that they will get to see every day. They will get to interact with every day. What will look probably different and be a little bit harder is you won't necessarily have to the level of interaction with other grade levels like we usually do. So it is, it's because I've seen this in my own child. Like, I want to plan for as much as I can to give them that social interaction and those breaks. And we're probably going to talk more about what that all means. Maybe it is just a walk outside as a class to take a mental break, even if it's not a scheduled recess time kind of thing. But it's, the social emotional, I'm trying to, I think I've started a book twice now. And I'm hoping now that I feel like we're seeing the end of the planning process, that maybe I can pick it back up, but it's on social emotional learning, and just want to try to get through that so we can figure out how we need to address that more this school year. It's hard because we've got so much to try to fit into our day to begin with, but I think this is going to become probably even more important.
Well, and I think too, as we talk about, like, the younger kids, and I've talked about this on here before, is we teach them, like, at preschool age, or I remember you and I having, discussions with kids at Trinity too, of, like, look at their face. Are they happy? Are they sad? And when we cover half of that face and not being able to, like, read, emotions in other people, or having to go off their voice, which is muffled and stuff. And we've been talking about that at our office too. Like, what can we do to assist and still meeting the social emotional needs of kids and being, safe and socially respectful of each other. The other thing that you and I have always talked about, and so I might hit a little button here, is parents' anxiety. And as a principal, as a therapist who works in schools, parents' anxiety, not to mention our own as parents' anxiety, and how we, like, plan for not trying to make everybody happy, but not being attacked on all ends.
Yeah.
So how is that like coming up? How have you been addressing some of those pieces, or maybe even just like preparing your staff that we're not going to please everybody in these steps to go back?
Right. I think that kind of more went out actually with just my most recent email. I did send out just recently a survey to our families to and just ask just a few questions, partially related to all of the school reopening plans, but also just to kind of get a gauge on some of our behind the scenes planning for our lunch program and our aftercare programs. We got to figure out space to accommodate numbers and things like that. And part of what I did put into that introduction was that I'm going to take as much of this into consideration as I can, but that we can't please everyone. We see it, everybody sees it, I'm sure, every day as they go on social media. You've got your friends and your family that are on opposite ends of the spectrum about all the different components of dealing with this virus. And so why would our school being our families are going to be coming from various backgrounds and understandings and opinions, just like everything else is in our society. And so you just keep telling them that we're trying to plan the best we can for the safety of the kids, but also the safety of our teachers. Because I know there's difference of opinions too about how much it's affecting kids versus adults. And, we want to keep our teachers in school too with those kids. So, but it is, and that's probably going to be a reminder. I think the other big reminder too is that whatever plans as we release them is that they're fluid. It right. Could the next, the governors and the mayors, as they see what's going on, they make changes, and we may have to make changes to accommodate those. We just went back Friday in our county and the city to wearing masks if you're in an inside space, public space, and if social distancing outside is not possible. So that'll impact for sure what our upper grade kids are definitely doing in the classroom if that's carrying through. So
right. Yeah, and I think too, like one of the more important things in the teachers and the staff and just I've heard this as I've attended some webinars for like leaders is we're going to expect that not everybody's going to be happy with us, and then how important self-care is through those times, because you will be attacked, and not because anybody maybe necessarily hates you or doesn't like you, but they attack from their own anxiety. What are some of the self-care routines that you've been practicing? I know you've been a runner in the past. Have you been doing that through quarantine or after babies? Have you been keeping up with that?
I hadn't been after Tanner, but that was something I started. I think I'm in week 5 now of an app for easing back into a 5K. Yeah, it was just, especially at the beginning, when we weren't as structured with our day and trying to fit things in, that I felt my own anxiety and stress levels rising. When when a situation arises that, it feels like it's more of an emergency, it may not be, but you've got to respond to it, but you can't because you got 2 kids that you're watching while your husband's in a Zoom meeting. It's like, and so it just, especially as summer started, I was like, all right, I've got to start taking care of myself a bit. The other part of this too is I love my family, but I am with my family all day, every day.
I know, me too.
So, the breaks that I have in my day, I needed to start planning for a little bit. So I've actually started getting back up at about 5 o'clock in the morning to go do my run. It's not every day. I'll talk myself out of it if it's supposed to be raining at 5 o'clock. But it's happening at least 4 times a week, which is good. And my goal is to get it up to something every day, whether it's that or finding some kind of yoga or video or something to do in the house, just to have some more relaxing and physical movement and stuff. That's kind of my alone time. It did change a little bit about a week ago because Christopher likes to go out on the weekends, and we search for bunnies in the morning because it's that, like, we don't go that early on the weekends, but we go early enough, and then he counts how many bunnies we see along the way.
Do you see a lot?
Yeah, the one day I think we saw like 16.
Holy cow.
So two of my early morning runs, I've seen a skunk. They just go around here. I didn't realize I had to watch for those. So and chipmunks, that's the other big thing in the neighborhood. So
we just dodge alligators down here.
Yeah, my parents just had to do that recently. They had one in their backyard. Oh my
goodness. Oh, I hate those things.
Yeah. So that's kind of my morning
routine.
Break,
I appreciate you saying that
time,
because I think a lot of moms
work out the stress and the anxiety. Yeah. And then
I think a lot of moms have guilt over needing to have their own time. Like it should be that thing where we're like, oh, we get so much time with our family, but we also like need not to be around them 100% of the time.
Yeah. Just those mental alone times and breaks. And that's interesting is because I am more of an introverted person. And so I've known that I do need my alone time. It's interesting too, is that you would think that this would be great. I think I've determined during this time that there's a part of me that isn't, because how much I truly miss that social interaction, even though that social interaction can definitely take its own course on me being an introverted person. But man, have I missed seeing people and talking with people and just being next door to people in an office.
I think it speaks to how much our mental health needs socialization, whether we're introverted or extroverted. And I've shared with you most of the time how extroverted I am. But I think there's a piece of all of us that like social interaction is a must within our peer group. So like 7-year-olds and 2-year-olds don't really count for that. Maybe not even a husband that you live with. So
yeah. So we've been making some more efforts with that and do what we can. And then, nighttime, like every parent, nighttime after the kids to bed is that other potential for that time. So
yeah, for sure. Well, good. I'm glad. Any other things in the mental health realm for kids in your school or for you and your family that have really jumped out during these times?
I don't know. I mean, it's, I'm glad this last year we're able to work with another Lutheran counseling program up here to get somebody in a little bit. So we're working on continuing that for next year. The other thing I'm looking into is we redid all of our paperwork that's required for us to be part of Title I again. And apparently Title I funds can be used for kids that need counseling as well.
Yeah.
So the nice thing up here is that county covers that for county kids, and then Title I would cover it for city kids. So I'm hoping I can get all that worked out with that. And I think that's just the biggest thing is just, they've been with their family. So other than, I guess some of the interesting things, hearing from different parents. And I'm going to say, if any of my parents are watching right now, I'm giving them a huge shout out because they were unbelievable and they rolled with it all and did what they needed to do. But I know that there was some struggles out there. There are middle schoolers that thrive on that in-class instruction, that when they're thrown into and their only option is to do online learning, that's when they struggled and you didn't see the level of work that they're capable of doing in the classroom. The flip side of it is the kids that struggled and maybe are more of the disorganized, losing papers left and right, like they're the ones that were rocking it because everything was in one spot. But I think the other big part of it too is, the positive of having teachers is that it's somebody other than the parent. You know what I mean? For some family, I think every family to some extent deals with it. I mean, I dealt with it with Christopher. We found out that the best time for him not to argue about getting his work done was right away in the morning after breakfast. So we were doing his schoolwork from 7:30 to 8:30, 9 o'clock and getting it done. If I left it any later, it was an uphill battle. So I know that was going on for some of our families because they had younger kids and it requires sitting down next to them. So I know that probably took a toll too. And not that it lasts all day, but it does create that tension in the house between the kids and the parents as they have to take on that different role. So that's another hope of and positive, I guess, of the plans for reopening is that we're able to take that back on for them. And that kind
you
of
can
thing.
take it back. I mean, I'll send them to you from here. I learned so much about my kids though. Like honestly, in that time, I learned how much like one child needs constant affirmation and how the other one just thrives well setting his own schedule, and how the little one, she's a hot mess. That's what I learned. But I think you're right. I think we learned what we were never able to see from our kids in a classroom. And I heard teachers say this all the time, is like, oh, you're going to see what we see every day. And I was like, I do not like some of the things that I'm seeing from them every day. And I'm sorry. But I think it gave parents like an eye opening of, what it's like sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I want to thank you for your time jumping on here with me. Was there anything that you wanted to ask me or anything that we didn't chat about that you wanted to?
No, I guess, maybe just recommendations from you on what we should be looking for as the kids come back and like things that we should be, maybe keeping an eye out for as in terms of their behaviors that we may not think first thing that this is something related to all of this or coming back to school.
Yeah, I've done a webinar for LCEF recently for early childhood centers. And one of the big things we talked about was separation anxiety, I think is going to be huge. And I think it's going to be huge across all age groups. Like I'm sure my 13-year-old son, can you believe he's 13? And he has a mustache. And I can't even fathom this. I think he'll be good, but I think his like separation anxiety will manifest a little differently, like maybe combative behavior a little bit more. Where I think it'll look different like across age groups. But I also really, really, really think we have to plan for regression. Like I think we're going to see it across all platforms where kids just have forgotten things or aren't as sharp as they were, or, like that they've just regressed. And instead of us being, I can almost see like people being like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with them? Like we need to understand that's a normal reaction in those times. And, I agree with you. I think different households have taken different stances on this. And I think sometimes maybe there's too much anxiety in the home. Sometimes there's probably not enough about it. So there is, I even see at my daughter's return to club volleyball, and it's like these little like, well, this, they said over here, they said over here. And, I was like, do you watch the news? Like, where are you getting your information? And so it's just, they're going to be exposed to more information and probably political opinions that are out there. But I think regression and separation anxiety, I expect
are the big things
really strong. Yeah. For sure. Okay. And I'll tell you, one of the other age groups I'm a little more worried about is those that should have been going off to college, that have stayed home in their parents' homes. Like that's just to me a recipe for disaster in some areas. So the more that we can get, kids back into that, some type of normalcy, I think is going to be super important. Yeah, for sure. Well, as you're moving forward in these next couple of weeks, how can we pray for you, support you? Like what's really on your heart, decisions you got to make, or things coming up?
Well, first, if I'm going to make sure I find that link to that webinar because I'm planning for pre-planning and whatever we can do to prepare.
It's on our website. I'll send it to you. It's on our website. Okay. Yeah, I'll link it.
All the trainings just to prepare for different things. So, but I think prayers just for wisdom, as we go through this, and not just for me, but for the teachers that are helping me to work through a lot of these details, that we can think of as much ahead of time as we possibly can, and just peace about it all, because we talked about the anxiety in terms of the parents sending their kids off to school, but I'm sure all of us, and I'm going to include myself, like it's not just about me putting my son, actually both of them, because in just a few weeks, Tanner's going to be going back to childcare as well. You know, the personal anxiety there about them, keeping them safe, but wanting this for them so they can continue to socialize and have that learning opportunity, but also just, you know, the personal, I think that's kind of built up in all of this too, is the unknown, because you know what your family is doing, but you don't know what everybody around you is doing. So there's just that level of anxiety. So just that goes down, that we're able to work kind of through that and do the things I need to get through that. And I think just prayers of thanks for the people that surround us. I mean, in my case, you know, it's pastors at association churches that are helping out lots of different ways. You know, committees from those churches that are taking on some tasks to help us with recommendations for the facility. And so they're helping a lot with that. And then parents and teachers who do reach out and share their appreciation, understanding of what we're facing and that kind of thing. So thanks for all those too. But yeah, I think peace and wisdom is going to be the big ones.
And I think, I love what you said. I think we're all anxious, but to keep perspective, like as a parent, my goal is to launch my kid from this home in a successful way, getting all their needs met. And so how do I balance that with my own anxiety? I think is going to be such an important piece moving forward here for sure. Well, thank you so much for your time. I have a little treat on its way to you up there in Northern land. You moved away from me down here.
I am.
But come back to Florida and visit soon. It's like hot and disgusting here and we miss you. Thank you so much for your time, Elle. I appreciate it. And I love seeing you and chatting with you. So we need to chat again soon.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thank you for this.
I said hi.
Will do.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.